When the woman and her husband first met, neither of them had anything. They had no house, no land, and could not see what the future would hold. The only thing they had was the dream of building a life together. In order to build a home of their own, the two of them worked hard for 15 full years. They sold tickets, took all kinds of temporary jobs, and continued working overtime after their regular shifts. They stopped traveling and could not bear to buy new clothes, saving every penny they possibly could. Almost every brick in that house was paid for with the exhaustion they shared. To save on labor costs, they carried bricks and mixed cement themselves. The woman's hands became rough from the work, but the man held her hands and promised,
"This will become our home, and it will also be something we can leave behind in the future."
15 years later, the house was finally completed. It had white exterior walls, spacious rooms, and a balcony overlooking the sunset. When the final window was installed, the woman was so overwhelmed that she burst into tears. She believed that from that moment on, they would finally be able to live a stable and happy life. But not long afterward, her husband came home with an unusually cold expression. He looked at the woman and said directly, "My mother can no longer live alone. She's going to move in with us." Although the woman felt uncomfortable, she still nodded and agreed. She knew that her mother-in-law had always liked interfering in their lives. No matter whether the matter was important or trivial, she always had something to say and would even make decisions for them. But the woman did not want to argue with her husband over it. Unexpectedly, her husband continued,
"Also, this house will be registered under my mother's name."
For a moment, the woman felt as though she had stopped breathing. She asked in disbelief,
"Why? This is not fair. The two of us built this house together."
But her husband only replied coldly,
"Because she is my mother."
He did not mention the sleepless nights. He did not mention the sacrifices his wife had made for their home. Nor did he mention that, in order to pay for the roof, the woman had sold all the jewelry her mother had left her. A few days later, her husband actually completed the paperwork. The property deed did not bear the woman's name, nor did it bear both the husband's and wife's names. It bore only the mother-in-law's name. On the day the mother-in-law moved in, she did not show the slightest gratitude. Instead, she walked around inspecting the house as though she were its true owner. As soon as she put down her luggage, she pointed at the kitchen and said,
"This kitchen must be renovated. I have never liked this color."
Only at that moment did the woman finally understand that she was no longer living in her own home. She was merely staying in a house she had built with her own hands, but which belonged to someone else. That evening, her husband came to her again and said calmly,
"You had better move out for a while. My mother needs some peace and quiet."
15 full years of companionship and sacrifice had ultimately earned her only those words. The woman did not argue, nor did she cry in front of her husband. She walked alone through each room, gently touching the walls she had painted, the wooden doors she had polished with her own hands, and the furniture she and her husband had installed together all those years ago. At that moment, she understood a cruel truth. What they had taken from her was not merely a house, but 15 years of her life, time, and hard work. The woman packed only a very small suitcase. She did not take any of the furniture, and she could not take those memories with her. But she took away something her husband would never understand: the courage to begin again. A few months later, the woman rented a very small apartment. It had no balcony and no garden, and it was nowhere near as impressive as her former house. But on the rental agreement, her own name was written clearly. Someone asked her,
Aren't you heartbroken after losing the house you built with your own hands?
The woman replied calmly.
What is truly heartbreaking is spending 15 years building a home with someone who never intended to stay with you until the end. That house is still standing there, but it is no longer my home. Because a real home is not something gained through inheritance. It is something protected through mutual respect.